I would love to homeschool, but it just doesn't make sense. It's just not financially feasible for us. I was in that same boat. I used to think that homeschool and me staying home was not even an option. So I just never even considered it. And honestly, I loved my job. I was doing mobile prosthetics, which, come on, is an awesome job. I had tons of flexibility and autonomy, and it was the perfect setup, especially as a mom with a young family. But at the start of 2024, I was just starting to feel this tug to stay home. So I ignored it for a while because it just didn't make sense. It's like, how can I take away so much of our family income? And especially when I love what I do and I'm good at what I do and was getting a lot of fulfillment out of it. But like I said, there was just this tug, passions just started to shift and really felt like I needed to be home full time. For a year, we had done where I worked 3 days a week outside the home and my husband worked 2 days outside the home, and we just went back and forth with the homeschool responsibilities, and it just got to the point where it was just too much. It was no longer making sense for either of us. And so we sat down, we looked at the numbers, we looked at our budget, and we came up with a number of the absolute minimum we would need my husband to make per year that we can at least survive on for a little while. And his employer was able to match that number and take him on full time. And I'm not gonna lie, it has been challenging. We went down to half of our previous budget, but with some budgeting and discipline and definitely God's grace and provision over our finances, we've been able to make it work. So if you're sitting there wondering if it's even a possibility to homeschool on one income, I get it. It is so scary to let go of control, especially when it comes to finances. I want to help kind of walk you through the cost of homeschooling and hopefully help you see where it might be possible. The first one that always comes to mind is curriculum. So on the higher end, when it comes to curriculum, you have full box curriculum. Sunlight is one example. You have everything you need for the year for all the subjects in one box, one package. We do not use a full box curriculum. We're a little bit more, I guess, eclectic is the term, where we take and kind of mesh together different curriculums, different learning styles, different homeschool philosophies, and just kind of make it our own. The advantage to that is it's very individualized. It's also a little bit more work. It takes more time to research and kind of curate and prepare everything, but so far that's what has worked for us. But for someone who, let's say, is just starting out or maybe not super confident or maybe just doesn't have a ton of time, or if all the choices are too overwhelming, then a box curriculum that has everything in it and kind of more ready to go would probably be a really great option. So for our core subjects this year, we've purchased from IEW along with Singapore Math and All About Spelling. So with those core curriculums, there is enough flexibility in them that I think they'll work both well with my 7-year-old and my next age child when she gets up to that point. The nice thing about that is I'm not repurchasing teacher guides or anything like that. I'm just repurchasing any workbooks if necessary. And all the other subjects, we're doing more family styles. Chronos for a history, not really curriculum, but more guideline through history chronologically that has tons of awesome resources. So we are able to keep going through that resource, just recycle through it, going at a deeper level each time as the kids get older. We also purchased some unit studies that I came across that made sense to do with the kids. The big splurge was the Beautiful Feet Seasons of Field Nature Study. I had a couple friends that were using it and have used it, and it is a really gorgeous curriculum. More expensive. If you're interested in it, you can always just purchase the teacher guide and get the book list and just purchase the books separate through thrift books or another discount bookstore. I just did not want to take the time to try to track down all those books. I spent more money, but I saved it on time. And these are books that it's building our home library and that we're gonna keep, and the kids love reading them and rereading them. And so that's the other tip with curriculum is I try to purchase as much as possible non-consumable items, so stuff that we can reuse. The other tip with curriculum, especially if you're just getting started and especially with little kids, the curriculum is, it's fun and it's colorful and you're excited, and so it's very easy to just jump right in. My caveat would be, and this is kind of what I've tried to do as well, is if I see a curriculum that I like, I have a note in my phone that's my curriculum wish list. And it just goes on that list and it just kind of hangs out there for a while, because maybe I see a curriculum but the kids aren't quite ready for it yet, or I see a curriculum and it's just not in our budget right now, and so it just goes on that wish list. Maybe I talk it over with my husband and see what he thinks, see what his opinions are on it, if he thinks it would be a good fit and worth the money. Or maybe it's later on down the road and I no longer want that curriculum, or I found something that's even better. That would be a tip, just to have an ongoing curriculum wish list, just to help prevent impulse buying and overspending on curriculum. The next category, supplies and materials. This includes any sort of basic school supplies, copy paper, pencils, glue, all the things, basic supplies that you would need. I also included some subscriptions in this section. So we subscribe to World Watch. Has just become part of our morning rhythm in our homeschool, so the kids can be aware of current events, but they also have really interesting, engaging stories that the kids love. We always learn something new. It always brings up good discussions, or even something current event wise that we can be praying over as a family. And so that has been a wonderful addition to our homeschool. That's only $6.99 a month. There is a referral code in the description, so you can have a month free. So try it out, tell me what you think. And we have also subscribed to the Curiosity app. There's a lot of really cool documentaries on there that the kids enjoy, and I purchased it when it was $10 for the year. Also books. This is where I can also be tempted to overspend, is books, but thankfully there's thrift books, or there's a local homeschool consignment store that has tons of wonderful books. The third category, co-ops and activities. So we are part of a co-op. He does do Trail Life. That's been able to get my oldest son and my husband, so they can kind of do their own thing a couple times a month, which has been great for both of them. Field trips is another category where I really need to rein in the budget sometimes. My love language is personal time. I love to go out and do things, experiencing things with my kids. We're all very hands-on learners and visual learners, and like learning in real life in real time, but all those things cost. And so we kind of got to pick and choose what we want to do each month. So that's one thing that is in our budget that tends to be a little bit higher. A lot of those type of things locally have a free STEAM day, so we try and hit those things up on those days. We also have a membership to the Catawba Science Center in Hickory, which also covers admission for the Nature Center in Asheville and the Transportation Museum in Spencer on non-event days. So if there's anything like that in your area that would offer like a year membership that it makes sense. For us, it's $120 a year for all of that. So for us, it makes sense. So for that category, we're looking at high 800s to 900 for the year. And the final category is testing. We haven't had to look into this yet. My oldest just turned 7 in January, so we won't have to figure this out until the end of this calendar year. But from the preliminary searchings I've done, looking at $25 to $75 depending on the test that you choose, maybe a little bit higher if you're looking for a test that someone else proctors versus one that you give in your home. So now that was just going over some of the core costs. There are, I would say, some additional kind of hidden cost when it comes to homeschooling. One is the loss of one income. Again, we dropped down from $120,000 to $60,000 a year. Part of that budget conversation was also talking about getting my husband disability insurance if something were to happen, to have that insurance. Also part of the conversation was retirement, because we'd basically be self-funding our retirement. My husband doesn't get any sort of retirement benefits through his work, and we don't want to be completely reliant on Social Security. So, how are we going to fund our retirement and plan financially, not just for today, not just for this month or this year, but long term. Another potential hidden cost, you have your whole family eating at home more. Uptick in the grocery bill. So we have had to be more intentional, more strict with our grocery budget, planning more simple meals, eating more meals at home, buying in bulk when it makes sense. As another hidden cost, you might also notice an uptick in utilities if everybody's all of a sudden home during the main part of the day during the week. We haven't really seen this. There's a lot of days that we're out, and we do try and be intentional with our energy usage when we are at home. Now, interestingly, there was a survey done in 2021 that said close to half of those surveyed felt the financial burden of homeschooling was moderately to severely problematic. There was a more recent study done in 2024 that wanted to try to provide more up-to-date information, especially with inflation, when it comes to the average cost of homeschooling. So they surveyed 4,000 homeschool families across the United States, rural and suburban areas, and they found it cost just shy of $1,300 to homeschool a elementary age student. That cost went up to about $1,600 for a high school age student. And they did find it was a little bit higher in a suburban area, a little bit lower in a rural area. But the cool thing that they found is, because that's just an average, so there were some families that spent more, but there were also a lot of families that spent less. Most of the surveyed families spent just around $500 for their elementary age child and only around $500 for their high school age child as well. So I know it seems daunting. I know it's scary to drop to one income. I absolutely believe with a plan and some discipline and just trusting in God with your finances, that we can make homeschooling work. Finances should not be the sole reason we say no to homeschooling. You do not need to spend $1,000 or even hundreds of dollars to homeschool well. I taught my son to read on our old couch with a $15 book from Amazon. We do math games on the back deck. We read beautiful books and have our Bible study and have wonderful conversations right at our kitchen table. Our investment, our legacy, it's not just financial. And that's one thing I have to remind myself of as well. It's also our time that we're investing in our children, the freedom we have to raise our children, and the connections with them that we are building.